Hi, from my screen to yours, my name is Sammy, and today we'll be talking about all the dramas that I finished this month of April. And let me tell you, I watched a lot of popular dramas, so buckle in because we have a lot to talk about. Starting off, of course, is all the dramas that I finished, and we'll start off with one that really surprised me, and that is Veil of Shadows. If you watch my channel regularly, or if you watched my video introducing new April releases, you'll know that I don't typically lean towards this type of fantasy drama, but I did mention that there was something about it that was appealing for some reason. I was feeling like attracted and drawn to it, and so I decided to start it after I dropped this other drama that I'll talk about later. This drama hooked me in and I binged it, I would say, pretty fast. Everything in the show is super beautiful. I've never watched this director's other dramas. I know he's known for like similar style. Everything in the show looks super good, not only just the way it's shot in the cinematography, but all the actors and actresses, the world. But obviously you can't just have it looking good. It being fantasy means there's just a lot going on, and so it just kept me engaged because it was never slow, at least in my opinion. I did see online that some people thought it was boring. I guess to each their own. I was entertained the entire time because there was always action, obviously a lot of like magic and powers and whatever. And also the characters have a lot of secrets and hidden agendas, which I think was one of the reasons I was kind of drawn to it when I watched the trailer. I've never seen the cast in other projects, but I really liked all of them here. I was just curious what their characters were going to do and how relationships were going to develop. There's sort of like two main couples and I liked both of them. I did prefer the main couple. I have heard another thing that people say online is that they were confused with the story, and honestly it is kind of confusing, but trust the process because they do explain it in the end. I was just kind of just going with the vibe, even though sometimes I didn't really know what was happening. One just random note is that I don't know if this is just common for this director, but in a lot of the more intense scenes he plays like EDM in the background, and it just kind of made me chuckle because sometimes it kind of works to make it more epic, I guess, but then sometimes it's just funny and kind of random. I'm becoming a bit more open to Chinese fantasy dramas. I think mainly the reason that I was kind of worried about it before is that maybe nowadays it's less common with the technology and like budget or whatever. Like before, the worlds with the CGI just looked really bad, and so if it looks bad, I'm just like really not into it. I think I'm more open to it, especially after watching Love in the Clouds last year and this, both which I really enjoy. That was probably the biggest surprise of the month. Next, another surprise actually, and more of a feel-good drama, is Dream of Golden Years. So Veil of Shadows is like quite angsty, I would say, but this one is super feel-good. This one, the story, if you didn't know, our female lead suddenly gets transported back into the 80s and she starts kind of having a second chance at life in which she has more family love and romantic love and then career development, becoming a more confident, assured person. When I heard of the plot and watched the trailer before, like I thought I would give it a shot, but I wasn't sure if I was gonna love it, and I was mainly watching it because I like the female lead Zhou Ye. I checked it out and surprisingly I really enjoyed it. The first episode I was already drawn in, and I think one of the reasons is that, you know, sometimes when they time travel, the beginning takes way too long for them to like get used to their new surroundings and stuff, but I would say she adjusts to this new random phenomena that just happened and her new life like really quickly, and so I liked that it just kept going and we could see her in this new life and not just being like, oh my god, what's going on, you know. I also really liked her character in this. She was really bold, standing up for herself as well as her loved ones around her, and just watching her succeed, because ultimately that is what this is about. That's why it's a feel-good drama. It's kind of like, obviously there's a lot of hardships that come her way, especially in the beginning when she's just a very poor farm girl. Like, you know, she's gonna overcome it all and become a successful businesswoman. It's just fun seeing how she gets there. I also really liked the main romance, her romance with the male lead. It's definitely like a side thing. It's not like a romance drama, but they just have like a super healthy relationship. He's probably like the greenest of green flags. I can't think of any flaws. Truly, he was probably perfect, and he was just super sweet and likable, and I liked seeing their relationship grow and them just supporting each other unconditionally, even though their scenes aren't trying to like give you butterflies, I guess, but it's just like, I don't know. I just liked seeing them together. And I think I also liked their relationship because I just like the trope where the guy falls first and harder. I mean, later they obviously like love each other the same, but in the beginning he's definitely the one who falls in love with her first, like immediately. I also like the trope of the female lead just being really strong and competent and stuff. I didn't know about this before, but apparently China has like a censorship thing. So I saw a lot of people were kind of wary to start it because they always end up being like, it was all just a dream or some kind of bullshit like that. I would say that you don't really have to worry about this one. Like, I was satisfied with how it ended, if that's what you're worried about. I have a lot to say about all of these dramas. Moving on, next one that I finished is Girl from Nowhere, the reset. You may have heard me talk about the original Girl from Nowhere before because I love that drama, but it is a Thai drama, like psychological thriller. But this is the reboot of that original series that aired a few years ago. It follows the exact same premise, I would say, and that is it's an anthology series. So each episode it follows our protagonist Nano, and she goes to like different high schools and kind of enacts karmic justice to all these different people and the wrongdoings that they're doing. The difference with the reboot is that Nano is played by a different actress compared to the first two seasons. Season 1 is truly so good. If you love a thriller, definitely watch it. It's on Netflix. Season 2 I still liked, but definitely not close to how much I loved season 1. I'm here to report that unfortunately this reboot is probably mid at best, I would say. And there's a few reasons for that. First is that the writing is just pretty weak. I'm definitely not like a good writer, or I don't know anything about like screenwriting or whatever. It just felt off and weaker than the original. In the original, each episode, I feel like you kind of got more understanding of these background characters that only appear for that one episode, but you kind of got a sense of what their motivations were or their background or just some more like reasoning. So even though they might be doing bad things, you kind of get why. But then in this season, I feel like I didn't really get a sense of who these side characters were and what they were trying to do. So as a result, I feel like when she punishes them or whatever, it's just not as satisfying. I think the way the storytelling was just different and not as good. And then number 2, I think the season relies a lot on shock factor instead of being more psychologically disturbing, which is one of the things that I liked about the first and second season. But this one, there's clearly a lot more like overt gore. Not that it's super gory all the time, but there definitely is blood and violence, so trigger warning. Just ultimately feel like empty because it doesn't really like mean anything, I guess. And then the last point is one that's basically impossible to not discuss when comparing the seasons, and that is that Nano is played by different people. I think even if the original actress was cast in this season with everything else being the same, I think it still wouldn't be as good because ultimately like the writing is just not as good. They also wrote her differently, which maybe they were just trying to go for something different since it's a different actress, I guess, even though it's supposed to be the same being. The original writing of her character was a lot more likable. So comparing the two, the original, she's more mischievous. She causes chaos, but it feels more playful. When she first meets these side characters, she seems more innocent, like they befriend her before later provoking and punishing them. She has more of a reason to expose these people, not a personal reason obviously, but I don't know, just I guess the story in general has more reason, whereas the new Nano feels a lot more villainous. I feel like she liked causing chaos, and honestly at times I wasn't even sure what certain characters were doing wrong. I was like, are these people like actually bad? And overall just very over the top and dramatic. And so I think the original was just a lot more interesting because she was more like nuanced and complex, whereas the new Nano just likes to commit violence. And there's also one kind of like story similarity is that they both meet a boy. Like usually they're totally nonchalant, like they don't care about what happens to any of the characters, any of the people that they meet, but they meet this one person that kind of affects them a little. The original Nano and that boy, I felt like that episode, their relationship development just felt really real and sincere. That's why I love that episode. Like I love the disturbing stuff, but that episode is my favorite. There's some something about what happened between them that sort of shifts something in her, but not enough. Whereas the new in this season, the boy, I don't know, it just feels like kind of random, or like I didn't feel anything towards their relationship, and then something just happens at the end and I did not care. And I feel like it's a bit unfair to compare the actresses, but I just have to say the original, like, she was just perfectly cast, and I don't think anyone could play that character better. Like, I'm sorry, I just feel like she was too iconic and one of my favorite characters. There's something just so magnetic about her and her performance. All in all, I feel like low-key this season isn't really worth watching at all. It's just boring. Like, I was honestly bored, and I feel like I should not be bored with this kind of story. But again, watch season 1. And I feel like my throat needs a break. We're only halfway. Next, I think a lot of you have been waiting to hear my thoughts on this because I have finally decided to watch Reset after making my popular dramas that I haven't watched in a while video that a lot of you guys loved. I sat down and I watched Reset. And this is a time loop thriller where 2 passengers on this bus are stuck in this time loop trying to stop an explosion that happens. I actually watched this entire season subbed on YouTube, so it is a good show that's not too long, so it just gives you a good dose of thrills and some suspense, but there's also a lot of emotion mixed into it as you see the relationship between our leads develop, as well as kind of the backstories between all the people on the bus. I did like how the time loop is not that they're stuck in the exact situation, and each loop they do different things, so it's not boring. I did feel pretty frustrated watching some of the characters, sometimes just situations. Not that I could do any better. I would probably just be like dying still in that loop. But as a viewer, sometimes I was just like, bruh, the amount of frustration that gave me, not that it was like a lot, but there were like a handful of times. I would say that I enjoyed it and I'm glad I watched it, and I would recommend you to watch it. I don't think I like love it as much as a lot of people, I guess. But yeah, I had a good enough time with it and I was satisfied with the ending. And I'm currently not watching anything because I just finished a bunch of these dramas recently. However, I did drop 2 potentially controversial dramas, and the first one that I dropped is Perfect Crown. This is a, I'm sure you know, super highly anticipated rom-com starring IU and Hyun-woo. I watched the first 2 episodes. I didn't dislike the show, but I also didn't love it. Like, I wasn't bored, but I also wasn't that interested, you know? The pros, I liked the fictional world that they were building where this modern day Korea has, I forget what it's called, but it was cool seeing modern Korea blending with these traditional customs from like Joseon era, and seeing traditional clothing and regular modern clothing like blending. It's cool that some of the characters, like the royal family, speaks in a historical way of speaking, if that's how you say it. And then neutral thoughts, because there isn't really anything that I dislike per se. Before I started the drama, I saw some headlines that people were saying they had mixed feelings with the leads acting, but I didn't click into it. Personally, I didn't have any issues with either of their acting because I feel like that's just how the character is written. The female lead is more like exaggerated and kind of over the top, as it is with a lot of these rom-com K-dramas, and she didn't annoy me. And then the male lead is very stoic, low-key pretentious. Yeah, I feel like the actor plays that well. I just found him to be pretty boring. I didn't necessarily feel anything between them in the first 2 episodes, although they don't interact that much. It's more like building the story. And low-key, I kind of liked IU with the prime minister guy, but obviously he's not getting with her. If I wasn't watching so many other things, maybe I would just watch it and finish it. Since I am trying to watch a lot of stuff, only watch the things I'm really interested in, I just decided to drop this. And we have another hot take drama that I dropped, and that is The First Frost. This is a super hot modern romance C-drama that came out last year. I heard so much positive buzz about it. A lot of people, I feel like, were saying that this was like the drama of the year or like their favorite drama, whatever. It takes place in the Hidden Love universe. It's the love story of Hidden Love, the female lead, Sang-ji. This is like her brother Sang-yeon's romance love story. I watched Hidden Love last year, which I enjoyed, and then I want to watch the next Connected Universe romance drama, which is coming out sometime later this year, When I Meet the Moon. And so I heard kind of like potential that that was coming out sometime soon. Soon could be like half a year, I have no idea. I was like, oh, I should probably start watching this now because I want to watch this before I start that one. I didn't dislike this show. There's nothing wrong with it. I think personally, I just found it a bit boring. I actually gave this one 5 episodes episodes instead of the usual 2, just to like really make sure how I felt about it. The actual character of Sang-yin was just more interesting and charming and hidden love. Here he was just, at least so far, too like stoic and boring, and he's like frowning all the time. I just did not really care about him. I thought he was really likable in Hidden Love. I just wasn't feeling it. I also thought the female lead was really boring. She has some sort of trauma that I haven't gotten to in the story, so I don't know what it is. Basically, she has past trauma which keeps her really distant from those around her, and she kind of keeps to herself. Neither of them were fun to watch, and I saw a lot of people saying that she was flat, although that is just kind of how the character is, not necessarily because of the actress. Like after 5 episodes, they were still just barely talking to each other, very hard to communicate with each other. They look good together visually, but I was just feeling nothing, you know? Though I was quite interested in the second lead couple, who I found much more charming and fun and interesting. I actually last night skimmed through like every episode, and I just found their scenes and I watched all their scenes together, and I'm reporting back that their storyline I really enjoyed and I thought they were super cute. This drama is like 32 episodes, which is way too long to stick with this boring couple. I'm sorry, but if you love them, but I didn't want to stick through to get to the actual like good parts when they get together and whatever, because ultimately I didn't care about them that much. Yeah, this is definitely not a bad romance. It's more of a mature, in a ways, like realistic, I guess. That's just not really for me. Usually I feel like it's just personally kind of boring, but I am still very excited to watch When I Meet the Moon, and then I will probably finish that because I just like the female actress Lu Yuxiao very much. That is all the dramas that I completed and dropped this month of April. Super surprising, but if I had to pick one to watch, I would pick Veil of Shadows. Kind of crazy. I would love to know what you've watched this month, what your thoughts are on some of the dramas that I watched or dropped. Let me know in the comments. Subscribe to join my small drama community, and I'll see you in my next video.